December 1st, 2016, a new nation was born. A nation that is rising from more than 2 decades of serious human rights violations and diplomatic isolation. With a new president elected, it marked a beginning of prosperity, self-fulfillment, and freedom. However, the transition was not a smooth one. The new government inherited a very dysfunctional public sector and a depleting economy. Help was needed from the outside world to stabilize this young democracy. Sadly, the Gambia's relationship with its development partners was seriously severed by the Jammeh regime.
As a new government, what he has inherited is an economy that is virtually bankrupt and in need of immediate rescue.
The European Union was the first international partner that came to the rescue of the new Gambia with a budget support. EU Commissioner for International Cooperation and Development, Nevin Mimica, visited the Gambia to open a new page in the EU-Gambia relations. Mr. Mimica announced an immediate support of over 75 million euros, which came at a time that the state coffers were virtually empty. Another 150 million euros support package was promised to address medium and long-term efforts to build the capacity of the state on job creation. The intervention proved EU's commitment to provide immediate financial and technical support to the democratic process in the Gambia and its dividends for the population in terms of good governance, respect for human rights, and the rule of law. The partnership between the European Union and the Gambia is guided by the principles and objectives laid down in the Cotonou Agreement. The institutional framework which governs the relationship between the EU and African, Caribbean and Pacific countries which the Gambia is a signatory to. Under the cooperation, the ultimate goal is to alleviate poverty through sustainable development goals in line with the Gambia's government plans and policies for accelerated growth and employment. The Gambia has over the years benefited from projects that seek to address the pressing needs of Gambians and to improve their living standards. The cooperation made immense developments in the areas of infrastructure, governance, rural development, food security, climate change, technical support, and water and sanitation. EU programs in the Gambia address poverty-related issues, in particular gender equality, HIV and AIDS, environmental sustainability, good governance, and human rights, especially children's rights as well as nutrition and health.
The European Union is a global player and has got values and principles she would like to promote all over the world in partnership with cooperating countries. Now, for obvious reasons, the EU efforts before the election 2016 were pretty much in vain. There was no response from the government side. However, since the last presidential election in December 2016, we are partnering with a new government in the Gambia. Therefore, all those values and policies the European Union is interested in and ready to promote are those subjects. We have a very close cooperation with the government of the Gambia.
I think the EU, they are our biggest partner, and they are very committed to this country. Since we came to power, they have given us utmost support.
EU has significantly financed a lot of projects in the Gambia, starting from fisheries, the water facility, the water sector, and transport, nutrition, food security, trade. And if you look at EU financing, especially in this cycle that we are at present with this new government, EU funding has gone 4 times as it used to be, because presently, like, we target to deliver 225 million of aid.
the inherited financial and economic situation of the country was disastrous. So the most important was to make sure that there is a stability in the country in terms of financial management. So the 25 million euro budgetary support, which was dispersed in August 2017, was aimed at assisting the government to stabilize the situation.
The EU certainly have been helping us in our areas of budget support. It's helping us in our security reform. In fact, it's going to facilitate a round table conference of donors in order to reconstruct our economy.
Government's goal is to have key priority areas like energy, agriculture, and youth employment. So these are new policies that they want to intervene in. Without the intervention of the EU, it would have been hard for them to be able to go into these areas, actually to be able to give back people what they need and to help them at least better their lives. The new government has benefited from a 70 million euros budget support that came as a grant, meaning the government does not have to reimburse these funds. This budget support aims at supporting the democratic and economic transition in the Gambia. The grant has a component of governance which supports democratic reforms with technical assistance, with a specific focus on the security sector reform and electoral reform. The European Union continues to be committed in supporting the government of the Gambia to stabilize its economy and ensure good governance and rule of law. EU is heavily engaged in making sure that the support given to Gambia has a direct impact on the lives of the ordinary Gambians, especially those living in more vulnerable communities.
If the population of the Gambia does not associate a positive feeling with the changes, meaning that if a farmer upcountry in Basse doesn't feel better in the next coming years than he felt before the changes, they would not associate a positive feeling with democracy. And this is by all means something to be avoided. I do believe assisting to create a healthier society is the very basis for any sort of development in future.
The EU is heavily engaged in projects related to rural development and food security and nutrition in the Gambia. From my perspective, we have currently programmed, that means contracts that are signed and up and running, around about 45 million euros in that particular area. That's covering a range of topics from agricultural development to early warning systems and disaster risk reduction, to trying to tackle nutrition and the root causes of nutrition and food insecurity, and also looking at food fortification issues, as well as the cross-cutting issue of climate change.
The Gambia has a very high rate of poverty. In 2010, the Gambia's National Integrated Household Survey had confirmed that half of the population was living below the poverty line, and per capita GDP has been falling ever since. Furthermore, a person living in a rural area was twice as likely to be as poor as an urban dweller. Traditionally, the Gambia's economy has been based on subsistence agriculture, with additional household income coming from cash crops and surpluses in productive years. However, rural communities continue to face the challenges of food insecurity due to high levels of rural-urban migrations, climate change, poverty, amongst other factors. In 2012, the European Commission made a pledge to reduce the number of stunted children under the age of 5 globally by at least 7 million before 2025. By 2013, EU pledged to give 3.5 billion euros worldwide to contribute in building the resilience of vulnerable communities by addressing the root causes of food insecurity. In June 2017, the EU funded an €11.5 million project entitled Post-Crisis Response to Food and Nutrition and Insecurity in the Gambia. The project aim was to reduce food insecurity and malnutrition in the Gambia. The project was a response mechanism to the twin shocks that the Gambia suffered from during the years of 2014 and 2015. The late and erratic rain during the planting season in 2014 led to a significant drop in crop production and impacting rural household food security. Secondly, the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, even though Gambia didn't record any case, led to a massive drop in tourism income, a major forex earner for the Gambian economy. The crisis provoked an immediate humanitarian response in 2015 from the European Union Humanitarian Aid and Civil Protection Office, ECHO. The project funded cash transfers to the most vulnerable communities in Central River region and also provided assistance through UNICEF to severe acute malnourished children across the country. The EU then followed up the ECHO intervention with a project called Post-Crisis Response to Food and Nutrition Insecurity. The project recognizes the underlying causes of food and nutrition insecurity beyond just the immediate shocks that led to the ECHO intervention. The project identified 7 project result areas. These result areas aimed at improving household food security and health programs, promoting optimal nutrition and care practices.
So if you look at the most severe form of food insecurity, about 11% of the population is food insecure. And a measure of that food insecurity involves looking at the food basket of individuals in the Gambia. The issue of access and availability to the right food, nutritious food, in the right quantities is an issue. Currently, the stunting rate, national rate, is 22.9, which is very, very high. And so this project is, with the other components implemented by other UN agencies to make sure that we have food security, and make sure that we have nutrition education, make sure that we have treatment of malnutrition in the communities. So this will help reduce the morbidity and mortality, that's the death of children, sickness in the children, to drastically reduce so that the children are able to grow to their potentials they develop. And then because malnutrition really affects children's ability to learn.
The Post-Crisis Response to Food and Nutrition Insecurity project is funded under the Envelope B component of the 11th ADF. EU is working with 3 UN agencies in implementing the program. UNICEF is the UN agency responsible for advocating for the protection of children's rights and help them meet their basic needs. Under the program, UNICEF is implementing 2 components. 1. Preventing malnutrition by training mothers and caregivers on infant and young child feeding practices. And 2. Treating severe acute malnutrition cases by providing therapeutic foods and medication for these victims. The World Food Programme focuses on 3 result areas. 1. Creating access to diversified food. 2. Prevention of stunting. And 3. Enhance knowledge of practice of women of children between the ages of 0 and 2. In implementing the project, the World Food Programme focuses on the Targeted Supplementary Feeding Program under the Moderate Acute Malnutrition Program, MAM, and the Blanket Supplementary Feeding Program. This component aims to address the nutritional needs of over 16,000 children and 7,000 pregnant and lactating mothers. The MAM program targets children from 6 to 59 months, as well as pregnant and lactating women. The Blanket Supplementary Feeding Program targets children from 6 to 23 months who are not malnourished. The project seeks to prevent over 40,000 children from malnutrition. EU is funding FAO with a €4.4 million food fortification program. The project is fortifying local foods with essential micronutrients such as vitamin A, zinc, iron, folic acid, and other vitamin B nutrients. In August 2017, EU funded another biofortification project to be implemented by United Purpose. The €2.6 million project is a 4-year program that aims to reduce micronutrient deficiencies of women and children through sustainable and integrated approaches to food fortification.
This project will benefit to more than 18,000 families, households, and this represents 1/50 of the rural population of the Gambia. So it's it's small, but it's a very important project.
As part of the Gambia post-crisis response to food and nutrition insecurity, the European Union, in partnership with FAO, is improving the capacities of Gambian farmers through a farmer field school project. The project aims to complement the work of the Gambia's agricultural extension system. 75 farmers have been trained in improved crop, livestock, nutrition, farming and business techniques. Each trainee established a farmer field school at the community level where 30 farmers are being trained on climate-smart agriculture, organic farming, integrated pest management practices, amongst others. A minimum of 10,000 farmers nationwide are targeted for the training.
Mo nde jangde nde ittumi nde ɗoni simi honma to saare amen to mi foti noddu saare nde fof mi waktida e maɓe kulle fama fi school momin jangi mo ga njeriñ mum monin woni sa a jangum ha parma a ruttitin ko andano ko andum ɗum sayama ɗa ɗum foti liggor keɓa nafa kamum kanin
seno londo kam sol nafa bake kat ni be ko ko ma londo soto je yalo nafa tata bare yu ne fama fi school ya karan isi londe jama soto yemi yalo ka sina fida sano kon kat isi jambandi ku mundol karanje isi la fi fon lo nya isi karanje isa le be ku fol kala nyame.
The post-crisis response to food and nutritional insecurity also involved fighting hunger and poverty through a Cash for Work project. The project focused on reducing the impact of floods in rice production areas, providing technical support to farmers, reducing challenges in rice fields, and discouraging rural-urban migration by providing employment. UNICEF is implementing a €3 million project to provide direct cash transfer to over 6,100 children between the ages of 0 to 24 months. The project is called Building Resilience through Social Transfers for Nutrition Security in the Gambia. The EU-funded cash transfer program is meant to build resilience by making additional money available for the household to diversify their food consumption, improve feeding patterns, thereby making more nutrients available in their meals. Apart from the cash transfer, parents receive education support from health service providers on maternal, infant, and young child feeding practices to ensure a healthy environment for child growth.
Karuo kar ninga kema worota kadindi wala domorole sa ninga sanga diala amambatande kurantu andala pesoro ne ma jivolu
sanani wi a cellal ko a har ar muyni ne biye no fewi ne nyama ko selli kaliso ko ari ko min bawa harde min muyni ne bibbe amen min keba kalis kadi jomu men muyna kara no fewi sa
nyin kema woro mi kadi na la far ku jamala tandina na dimbayar kadu ko nga dimbaya commencé fobi ndi ngola pesa ro man kono bay jiji fo sai kadu domoro wala ko to sone ata mu bakel.
So we see very positive signs from this program, and what the European Union is looking at now is incorporating the BREST program in a much broader series of comprehensive transfers operated by the government of the Gambia to provide support to different vulnerable groups across the life cycle.
School children in Central River and North Bank regions are benefiting from a school feeding program that provides diversified and nutritious food through homegrown school meals. This project is part of EU's commitment made in the beginning of 2017 to allocate €20.5 million from the 11th EDF to a program called Agriculture for Economic Growth and Food Security to Mitigate Migration. The program has 3 components. Component 1 FAOs, Agriculture for Economic Growth. Component 2, World Food Programs, School Meals and Disaster Risk Management. And Component 3, NGOs, Support to the 11th EDF Agriculture for Economic Growth and Food Security Program. Regions that are considered most vulnerable to hunger are receiving over 4 million euros support to complement the World Food Programme's school feeding program. Over 64,000 children in the regions of North Bank and Central River region are now relieved from the burden of going to school hungry.
Some of the kids get up very early when their breakfasts are not yet ready or are not prepared, or because of poverty there is no breakfast for them. So if they come to school, you see, they are able to have food, you see, that will keep them for the whole day.
There are some students that their parents do not give them lunch, and when they come to the school, food is here for them. They eat comfortably and go back to class.
If the upcoming young generation suffers from acute malnutrition, for example, then you will not have the future generation healthy in the country. If the future generation is not healthy in the country, they will not find a job, they may not be able to work and develop the country. So it's like a domino effect. There is no other way than trying to treat the problem right at the origin. It's extremely important. I also believe that these are also projects in which not only the project objective could be achieved, but more equally importantly, or even more importantly, this will or may bring a change in the daily life of the individual.
World Food Programme is working together with FAO to implement the disaster risk management component of the Agriculture for Economic Growth and Food Security and Nutrition to Mitigate Migration program. The Disaster Risk Management Program includes application of improved early warning information systems, application of disaster risk reduction tools and approaches in the area of insurance, safety nets, mitigation and contingency planning, and vulnerability assessments undertaken to identify the most vulnerable households. According to the University of Notre Dame Global Adaptation Index, the Gambia is the 10th most vulnerable country to climate change. The country is among the top 44 most vulnerable LDCs. Given this vulnerability and poor state of economic development, the country is in urgent need of support in the form of investments and innovations in climate change-related measures to build resilience and adaptation capacity. The first phase of the Global Climate Change Alliance ran between the period of 2012 to 2016. The 3.86 million project was part of EU's efforts to contribute to the capability of the Gambian government and people of the Gambia to adapt to increased climate variability and change. In 2017, another 3.5 million euros of funds was set to benefit coastal communities and help them adapt to the impacts of climate change through institution strengthening, knowledge management, and demonstrated implementation of the national decree of the Integrated Coastal Zone Management Approach at national and local levels. It takes into account the interlinkages between social, economic, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development and is in alignment with the Gambia's National Climate Change Adaptation Plan and Strategy, as well as the national determined contributions. This action also intends to widen partnership with non-state actors and to further integrate women's rights and gender equality issues into local climate adaptation plans. More than 63% of the Gambia's population lives in rural areas. Most of them are poor and depend on agriculture for survival. This high level of poverty is worsening by the lack of access to good road networks. Farmers find it difficult to access markets and other facilities, therefore affecting productivity. The European Union is assisting these communities with over 10.4 million euros to reinforce access of the most vulnerable populations to markets and socio-economic facilities through a feeder road rehabilitation program. The project is supporting sustainable food production sector by creating access to market for farmers,
The project entails two components. One component is access to market and social facilities, and the second component is an exit strategy to the transport sector. It's a support on the eighth envelope, complementing sustainable food production sector. The government has identified agriculture as its priority sector and is a support to access market.
It's very important that people have access to markets. So you may well have farmers who are growing things, but that produce isn't worth very much if they can't sell it. If they have to walk a long distance carrying the produce, then it becomes very difficult. The other part is that you have good access to socio-economic facilities, schools, clinics, and the like.
The EU supported the Gambia in constructing most of its primary road networks during the 9th and 10th EDF. And during the 11th EDF, we have some governance program, road maintenance, and actual road. The feeder roads that we are going to build is going to be varied in the country, started from North Bank, Central River region, and Upper River region. The number of roads that we are going to build is going to be equal to nearly 11 roads, and the amount of kilometers for those roads is going to be 104 kilometers of roads.
Another project in EU's support to the infrastructure sector is the Drainage and Sanitation Project. The 1.9 million euros project is under the B envelope. The project constructed drainage systems in 5 hotspots in the Gambia, namely Bundung, Brikama, Bansang, Soma, and Bara. Reliable and affordable energy supply is one of the biggest challenges facing the Gambia. The European Union is committed to work with the Gambian government on improving energy demand management, energy efficiency, renewable energy generation, and clean technology development. EU with its partners is formulating a project worth over 85 million euros to improve electricity services in the Gambia.
At present, we are using 15 million euros from the National Indicative Program and 35 million euros financed by the European Investment Bank to support the Gambia government to achieve its energy need. This has been programmed and identified due to requests we receive from the government that energy is their priority sector.
At present, the EU with its partners are formulating a project worth over 85 million euro to improve electricity services in the Gambia by increasing the generation capacity through on-grid utility-scale photovoltaic, increasing transmission capacity by reinforcing and expanding the national grid, providing off-grid solar photovoltaic systems for all schools and health centers, especially in remote areas.
The other great area is employment job opportunity. I do believe for any country in the world, this is a critical issue. If you don't create circumstances in which the young generation will find themselves meaningful engagement and employment, if you fail to do so, then you are actually limiting the chances of the future generations.
In February 2017, the EU launched the Youth Empowerment Project, YEP. The YEP project addresses the economic root causes of irregular migration by supporting youth employment and entrepreneurship. The project takes a market-lead approach to improving the skills and employability of potential and returning migrants according to demands of the job market and simultaneously creating employment opportunities along Gambian value chains. The Youth Empowerment Project focuses on vocational training and support for micro and small-sized enterprises and create new jobs in selected sectors through value addition and internationalization.
So the Youth Empowerment Project, it works at building skills, concrete skills that make the youths employable. It looks at entrepreneurship opportunities, instilling a business mindset so that people also start creating their own businesses. It also has a component which is access to finance, which is very important in the context of the Gambia. So we all know training and skills is important, but it's also very important that the youths have access to capital, access to assets, so that they can start their own business. So we are launching a mini grant scheme. We're also launching a mini loan scheme. So we have different financial instruments that will help the youths to also put their skills into practice and build on that.
The Gambian government identified the lack of viable economic opportunities as one of the main challenges of the country. This is the main reason for high emigration rate from the country. The high unemployment, especially among youth, has resulted in the increased emigration among all segments of the population. The European Union is funding a €3 million project called Strengthening the Management and Governance of Migration and the Sustainable Reintegration of Returning Migrants in the Gambia. This action aims at addressing irregular migration from the Gambia through promoting strengthening migration governance, improved migrants' protection, and sustainable reintegration of returnees. It will primarily target return migrants and communities affected by high emigration. The action will support the reintegration of 1,500 migrants and the Gambian government in its capacity to provide sustainable reintegration, including protection to vulnerable migrants. It will also increase awareness of 250 communities in high migration areas and migrants on the consequences and viable alternatives to irregular migration. The program will also support national and local authorities and development partners in having access to data on migration factors, flows, and trends to support evidence-based policy development and program. Ensuring good governance is a major priority for the European Union. EU is heavily engaged in supporting the Gambia with democratic reforms through technical assistance with a specific focus on electoral reforms and reforming the security sector. Stabilizing the security sector is important to ensure a safe environment for growth and development. Numerous efforts have been done to develop the sector through reform mechanisms and financial support. The entire mandate of the economic troops in the Gambia is entirely funded by the European Union through the African Peace Facility.
You can't have a stable government. You can't have a government, concentrate on its development activities, on its administration, without being absolutely certain of its security. And the economic is just doing that, and is doing so at the expense of the EU, which is very commendable. And of course, as I've said also, the security reform agenda, the EU is playing a very significant role in that.
It's a critical issue. Without security in the country, there is no development in future. The current strengths of the security sector overall is probably of a size which is probably not affordable for a country like the Gambia. Now, reforming it is very delicate issue, and we are now looking at possibilities together with other partners in the UN, ECOWAS, to see what and how we could possibly support these. Now, cooperation in this regard with the previous government was just simply unimaginable.
In April 2017, EU deployed its first ever fully fledged election observation mission to the Gambia. As Gambia was preparing for its first parliamentary elections in the new democratic environment, EU deployed 50 observers from the EU member state across the Gambia. The mission's deployment follows an invitation from the Gambia Independent Electoral Commission. The mission was meant to offer an impartial and comprehensive assessment of the electoral process for consideration by the authorities, political parties, and civil society of the Gambia. Fostering a cordial working relation between political parties, irrespective of their social leaning, is a key component of good democratic practice. EU supports roundtable inter-party dialogues that are meant to create an effective communication environment that promotes political tolerance and understanding among political actors. A free and competent press is a strong pillar for development in any democratic environment. The European Union is supporting the media fraternity with capacity building and creating a media-friendly society for the Gambia.
I mean, press freedom matters are, issues of shared value. I mean, any country or community of nations that, believe in democracy promotes press freedom as a very fundamental pillar for democracy. And the EU in the Gambia has been out there promoting press freedom for a very, very long time. They have many times spoken out against the, abuse, and violations of the rights of media practitioners in the Gambia. But apart from that also, they have supported the Gambia Press Union in the form of projects that were aimed at building the capacity of journalists, projects that were also aimed at building the institutional capacity of the GPU itself.
There was a clear need in the Gambia to improve the capacity of media professionals and work with the media houses to develop training courses with that purpose. And also we worked with University of the Gambia, the Faculty of Journalism, to support the provision of equipment to improve the capacity of the learning environment and the teaching environment in the Faculty of Journalism.
In November 2017, EU funded an analysis of the information ecosystem in the Gambia. The project called Freedom of Expression and Media Pluralism in the Gambia. Analysis in the context of democratization and transitional justice was a month-long assessment to identify the context and priorities for support of freedom of expression and the development of independent media. The purpose of this report is to inform the EU delegation, EU member states and media stakeholders about the opportunities and challenges facing freedom of expression in this phase of democratic transition. The European Union is a strong partner in supporting the economic governance of the Gambia. EU has been working with the Gambian Public Procurement Authority in implementing the procurement reform, revising the Procurement Act, and improving the capacity of procuring organizations in the Gambia.
70% of government spending is on procurement. So to build the capacity of, the actors of the procurement, field is just important, because if their capacity is built, it will increase their efficiency, it will increase their input into the whole process, which will actually affect the output, like they say, garbage in, garbage out. So from the training we realized there was a huge gap between how we were doing things and the way things are supposed to be done. And also it will ensure uniformity, like it's a government, institution, and everything should be uniform.
EU has also been working with the IMF to support the Gambia to improve the collection of revenue and the administration of revenue in the Gambia. The Directorate of Budget under the Ministry of Finance has also received EU's support to improve the preparation of budget, execution of the budget, and improve budget credibility in the Gambia.
Basically, public financial management aims at mobilizing revenues for the government and spending these revenues in the best way possible for service delivery in the benefit of the general population.
The impact that the intervention of EU and donor partners is very crucial, because it helps government to achieve macroeconomic stabilization. In achieving macroeconomic stabilization, at the same time, it can create fiscal space for government for additional policies, additional new policies as part of their goal. So when you look at the debt to GDP of 120%, you look at interest rates hovering around 18%, you look at inflation, it's trending up, you look at exchange rate, the dollar is depreciating. So a stabilization, an intervention of a donor partner like EU of helping macroeconomic stability is quite phenomenal.
The European Union is providing technical assistance to the Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry to improve the business environment in the Gambia. The support aims to make the Gambia more attractive for investment and to facilitate business development and job creation in the Gambia. Since the election of President Barrow, the European Union has re-engaged with the Gambian authorities about the signature of the Economic Partnership Agreement, EPA. The Gambia has expressed a strong commitment to sign the EPA as soon as possible. The Economic Partnership Agreement has already been signed in December 2014 by 28 European Union member states and 13 West African countries. The agreement is beneficial to the Gambia to help the country participate to regional value chains and attract EU investment. The Economic Partnership Agreement is also a key element of the regional trade policy of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. The EPA guarantees duty-free quota, free access to the EU market for all Gambian products, while on Gambian side, the liberalization of its market to EU products provide affordable and good quality inputs to local producers, increasing their exports' competitiveness. The sensitive products which are key for the development of the Gambia will not be subject to liberalization.
As part of EU support to governance in the Gambia, we also include EU support to civil society. The EU is indeed financing a number of NGOs, non-governmental organizations in the Gambia, to improve the capacity of local civil society.
In recent years, we financed the Gambia nearly 1 million every year, in which we put up an advertisement for a call for proposals for NGOs and civil society actors in that area to respond for activities that they are engaged with. In the past years, we have two series of call for proposals. One is for non-state actors, LA component, in which we have respond and engage in activities such as women empowerment, FGM, female genital mutilation, and inclusive growth.
The EU is committed to transforming the lives of girls and women and breaking the vicious cycle of gender discrimination. This includes support to partner countries like the Gambia to establish a more enabling environment for the fulfillment of girls' and women's rights and to achieve real and tangible improvements on gender equality. This has been translated into the EU Gender Action Plan 2016 to 2020, which is an ambitious political commitment that places gender at the heart of what EU does, and most importantly, it holds the EU to account on its delivery. The EU Gender Action Plan 2016 focuses on 4 key areas. 1. Ensuring girls' and women's physical and psychological integrity. 2. Promoting the economic and social rights and empowerment of girls and women. 3. Strengthening girls' and women's voice and participation. And 4. Shifting the European Union's institutional culture to more effectively deliver on EU commitments. In 2017, EU launched a €1 million call for proposals to support civil society organizations promoting women's empowerment and the participation of women in inclusive and sustainable growth. The program supported 4 non-governmental organizations to improve women's lives in the Gambia. Earlier in 2014, EU provided €1 million for human rights and civil society with the objective to promote democracy and to promote children's rights. Through this funding, EU supported partners such as WASU Gambia CAFO's €300,000 project that aims to contribute to reducing gender-based violence against children and women, notably female genital mutilation and cutting. ActionAid in collaboration with Child Protection Alliance, CPA, and the Forum for African Women Educationalists, FAWEGAM, for their project supporting child-focused. SOS Children's Villages for their €299,000 project promoting child rights to ensure that children's needs are respected and fulfilled.
Yeah, the EU's participation in women empowerment in the Gambia is tremendous, not just with ActionAid. So in the long run, it is going to help us. There is a national action plan or a national policy on gender empowerment, and the EU is contributing in a big way in realizing the goals within that national policy. Women economic empowerment, their civic rights, which is very important for good governance, violence against women, especially in the area of abandoning FGMC and sexual offenses. So their partnership is contributing a lot to pursuing the rights of women in the Gambia, and hopefully in the near future we will see more Gambian women taking up decision-making positions. We will see less and less cases of violence against women. We will see women challenging and rejecting all forms of violence against women, and that is to enhance development of Gambia.
The political and development cooperation between the Gambia and the European Union is exemplary, and that will require us to keep up with that high degree of partnership and possibly to enhance. There is always room for improvement. So I have no doubt that the year 2018 to come will give us the opportunity to prove how serious we are in our commitments.
Very, very, very. They have been very, very, very supportive. They have been very, very, very supportive, and still they are supportive. And we are 100% sure the European Union will continue to support this country as far as we believe in the principle of democracy, and we will not compromise.